next speaker is Stuart McNaughton, and yeah, his presentation is a little bit linked to yours, I should say. Stuart is diagnosed with profound deafness at the age of 4, had hearing aids from the age of 5, was in mainstream school, and received bilateral cochlear implants in 2000 and 2013. He was 20 years in an advocacy role within the industry. He's a qualified psychotherapist, and he's currently started a private practice from February 2019. He started to work as a cochlear implant coach in just half a year ago in February 22. He also launched the RADG program, and I'm sure he will talk about this in a moment, in April 22. Currently, he's supporting 2 adults and 6 families in his practice. Stuart, we look forward to your presentation.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Leo. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Super, super. Okay, well, first of all, a massive thank you for this opportunity to talk at a CIICA Live event. Today, I'm here to talk about the missing piece of the CI Jigsaw. So let's crack on with the presentation. So I've broken down my presentation into 3 parts. So there's what we already knew, what we know from the survey so far that Connie has been speaking about, and what I see in my work and how all of this combines to tell us a story. So let's start with part 1 on the next slide. I'm not going to read all of this out, but basically it's been well researched that hearing loss has a significant impact on mental health, our general well-being, and contributes to social and personal problems, with a particular emphasis on our everyday and intimate relationships. Now, when it comes to cochlear implants, I have come across countless people who have expressed general concerns and sometimes absolute fear of the cochlear implantation itself. And this contributes to a delay in getting implanted, and by delaying, impacting on their mental health as well for many years. So on the next slide, I want to shift the focus to part 2 of my presentation. So what we now know from the survey. Now, there are 2 rationales of the survey that really appealed to me, and I can see how they tie in with my own work as a cochlear implant coach. I'll go through these in turn on the next slide. So the main findings from the information so far is that after the first year, rehab seems to stop. Now, what I would like to know is, do individuals feel empowered enough to ask for more? If they don't feel empowered, I would work to change that. Counselling earlier on in the process would empower individuals to speak up, but we know that this level of counselling isn't widely available, but is much needed. So in the next image, we see that 32% said that the service that they received was not sufficient. Okay. Now, this number is cause for concern because poor services only continue if it's allowed to continue. So generally, if more individuals felt empowered enough to complain or empowered enough to find alternative sources of therapy, this 32%, I imagine, would reduce because they would be getting better levels of rehabilitation and therapy. Sometimes, though, poor service can actually originate in the public sector. And again, this is what drives people to seek services from the private sector. In this part about who funds the services, we know that there's a great disparity in what we do and don't have to pay for from our own pockets. It's only very recently that I now have to pay for replacement batteries if I lose them here in the UK. This never used to be the case. So what we all have to pay and not pay is subject to change. It's very uncertain. So whilst we see that most of the rehabilitation is paid for by the government, as Leo mentioned earlier, we still don't have all the results yet. So what I would like to know, what I think would be interesting to see is what percentage of those who received rehabilitation in the public sector are actually happy with the standard of care. Just so we can see whether or not getting services from the private sector is in the best interest of adults and families out there. And in the last image, we see that I wasn't too surprised to see that peer support was ranked 8th. Now, most peer support is done online now through social media and various online platforms. But the thing is, what I'm seeing is somebody will post a question, they'll get 30 replies, 10% of them might be inaccurate. Some of them are not explained in very clear language. And this is what's fueling the level of confusion and overwhelm which I'm seeing in my counselling sessions. A lot of this misinformation and over-information and speed of willingness to share our own stories is actually causing some of the overwhelm. So when clients work with me directly, they feel heard. And this is during, after, and beyond cochlear implantation. One of my clients recently told me that they will be meeting the 9th person in their cochlear implant centre shortly, which is a bit mind-boggling when you think about it, because how does one feel supported by 9 people when that one-to-one relationship is so valuable? On this slide, so we've looked at the what we knew, we've looked at what the survey tells us, and I'm seeing some of this mirrored in my work. These are just some of the themes that I'm seeing in my sessions, and this is all pre-implantation. Any worries about rehab or funding are only going to exacerbate worry, sleep deprivation, depression, fear, and a whole range of other issues. And where do candidates go to get support on these issues? This kind of support isn't factored into most cochlear implant programs out there. It's been totally overlooked. So maybe it's a good idea to tell you a little bit about the way I work. So on the next slide, these are the ways that I work. So one way that I work is psychodynamically, which means I explore my client's past. What was their childhood like? Was there any bullying? If they were mainstream schooled, very likely they were. Now, I work this way because as adults, we often hold back because we don't feel empowered. And this can be rooted in what happened to us earlier on. So this can result in not speaking up, not advocating for ourselves, and not feeling secure enough to ask for help. I also work humanistically, which is all about now. How are you feeling today? How do you feel about your hearing loss? What are your hopes for the future based on how you feel today? I also work cognitively. So by this, I'm exploring how we think. Are we naturally inclined to think negatively? Do we naturally catastrophize? Do we naturally minimize our own hopes for the future? Because with low self-esteem comes that belief that we don't deserve. And as I deepen my work with clients, they discover that it's only them that are holding themselves back. And we talk a lot about empowering others, don't we, on CIICA? We talk a lot about the importance of empowering others. So to truly advocate for ourselves, we need confidence. And that means going through a process where our thinking patterns are challenged. And then there's sharing. I work a lot with self-disclosures, which can be quite reassuring, sharing my lived experience with some of the candidates/clients that I have. Now, working this way requires psychological skill. And indeed, if we look at the next slide, if we're truly, genuinely looking to work in a more person-centered way and get more person-centered care, then provision of psychological support is just one aspect of a whole ecosystem that will empower those individuals. So on the next slide, just to bring this presentation to a close, I ask again, who is supporting the families before, during, after, and beyond? Because we talk very much about how many of the funding schemes out there don't really provide for the long-term demands of cochlear implant care. So what we do need is we need more specialised support. The industry has a very mature product which continues to amaze, but the support isn't anywhere near enough. We also need dedicated mental health therapists and specialists who can explore the range of themes that the deaf and the hard of hearing are more likely to experience. And this was mentioned many times in the World Report on Hearing as well. Peer support is vital, but not all mentors or brand ambassadors, whatever we want to call them, are qualified to provide emotional support. So again, I think mentors and more specialised support should be made available. And as I sit here and present, I just wonder, is this actually an opportunity to develop some of the group at CIICA? Because our combined live experience plus some training could be an absolute game changer in the way that families feel supported, not just in terms of their hearing performance, but also in maximising their mental states. So on the next slide, my very last slide, I ask, well, it's more like an assertion really, the time for the next level of care is now. It's already passed. We need this kind of care now. And if we get this right, maybe more of those 19 out of 20 people that don't come forward to have a cochlear implant might do so. Many of them are actually delaying because of fear. Many of them are delaying because they've been exposed to perhaps not the best content on social media. Now, if they knew they were going to be supported better, I believe this would change the preconceptions of cochlear implants quite drastically. Now, thank you very much for listening, and I'm really looking forward to Catherine's presentation. I've really enjoyed all the presentations today, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Stuart. And we also have joined and enjoyed your presentation very, very much. You gave us several important topics and words which we have to put in our mind. And I look forward. I saw in the chat several reactions and suggestions. Brian, what are the most important things?
Gosh, I think that's difficult, because what really came across for me in the questions was just how fascinated people were, Stuart, by that presentation, and how much some of them might have valued through their journey to cochlear implants, having access to being able to be supported and to think through what was going on with them and what they wanted. And just the crucial element, I think, that you were highlighting of, you know, at the end of the day, this is all about individuals and how they react to the technology and how it meets the needs in their life and where they're coming from. And therefore, it's, you know, we tend to, as you said, we tend to talk about the technology. What we need to talk about a lot more are the humans and how they're using it and what needs they have to be able to use it better. And again, we think of, you know, the technical bits of rehabilitation, but as you're saying, we don't think of the whole person. So there were quite a few comments there about the importance of thinking of the whole person and having these support services available for people is what came out very strongly to me. So that was what I kind of saw there most.
Thank you, Brian. And I think we have to keep in our mind that when we talk about rehabilitation after cochlear implantation, that it means that we not only mean, let's say, speech and language therapy or auditory training, but that also social emotional support, psychological support should also be included if needed.